a long time ago when I did clothing merchandising, and when I was setting up a wall, right? A wall, I have all this clothing from a manufacturer and I'm setting up a wall, a display, right? A display of clothes, besides putting the clothes itself. I really do will talk to myself and say, "Oh my gosh, this shirt, this kind of print," and I'll talk it out and I'll have this conversation with myself. So sometimes when people come over to my area and they're just kind of like, "I can hear you talking. Are you talking to me?" I said, "No, no, no. I'm talking to myself. I'm talking it out. Like I'm trying to figure it out." Um, but the difference with crafting though, because usually when I craft, I don't craft with nothing else going on. I craft with other stuff. I kind of use my crafting time as doing two things at once. So if I don't really get to watch a TV show or whatever, I'll have it on so that way I can hear it. Um, because I'm very much of a person. My number one for learning is I have to hear it. I don't really learn well if I just read it. I have to hear it. And then second is visually see it. So once I see it, I hear it, and then I see what's going on. And then third is visual. And visual, a lot of it more is if I have to mimic something, if I have to copy somebody else how they do it, then I have to watch how they do it as well. So crafting, I've kind of gotten to this place because I'm trying especially to become more of a free kind of crafter. Just stop trying to plan so hard and just do stuff. Then I'll do things. I'll listen to music, I'll watch TV, I'll get up and do other stuff at the same time. So doing this and actually talking while I craft is not normal for me. Everything else I do, I talk it out, but crafting I don't because I'm trying to become a more free artists. I'm trying to get to that place. So it's like a personal choice in a way, and I've learned to do it for myself. However, if I am making a craft for somebody, somebody's party, somebody's wedding, I'm making favors for them, I'm making a guest book. If I'm trying to figure it out, I do stop and start talking to myself. So I actually do that for that reason because I am trying to figure it out. But if I'm just trying to be free and crafting, I don't. So it's a little bit weird and interesting. Um, I will definitely say probably the only reason I'm able to talk and craft right now at the same time is because, I've spent the last year and a half watching streamers. So I've gotten to that place where I feel comfortable talking to you. Um, Maybe, if I never watched streamers and I just jumped in and said, you know what, I'm going to stream one day. I don't know anybody. I'm just going to do it. I don't have a community already. Or not, I have, but I'm not part of a community already. And I just went and did it. I'm sure my talking would be a lot more different. However, I'm talking to people that I've known for 2 years now. I'm talking like the three people really chatting with me right now: Patch, Squishcraft, Waikiela. I've known you all for over a year, and Sketchcraft, we talk a lot about crafting already, on stream, off stream. Patch, we talk a lot about our life in general, right? And I've been on stream with Patch, so I'm used to talking with Patch. And you know how like I always tell everybody, there's certain people's voices I have in my head. For when I get to that place where I feel where I felt lonely kind of stuff. I have Nunimer, I have Sketchcraft's voice in my head because I spent over a year doing that. If I see a conversation, Sir Brazen Bull and Patch arguing, blah 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 blah, arguing, blah, 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 blah. It's that kind of thing. In a lot of streams, especially because White and I at the time we both didn't we don't really stream. So remember, White, it used to a lot of times be me and you talking in chat, and we're not streamers. We've heard everybody else's voice, but we were the ones in the chat. So it's like talking to people that I've known for a long time. Sir Brazen Bull, I was not there for your very, very first streams, but I was there for when you first started streaming. So I've heard you talk things out, like when you try to figure stuff out. Even now, when you try to figure out your stream, I've heard you talk about it and do those kinds of things. Um, so it's like it's interesting because as I'm having these conversations with you all, I have your voices in my head already. I read what you write, and in my mind, I read it, and I'm hearing you say it in your voices in my head. Does that make sense? Does that make sense to everybody? Um, it's like when you have to read a book that is difficult. One thing that I learned is to watch a movie of the book. And it doesn't have to be a great movie, it doesn't have to be a replacement for it. But what I found is if I watch a movie, or I'm sorry, if I'm going to read a book that I know is going to be difficult for me to understand, sometimes I try to watch a movie or documentary about it first. Because if I get the actor's voice in my head, it makes better sense to me when I read it. Does that make sense to anybody? Um, yeah, you you can get the best advice for yourself, especially when you're talking it out, um, when you're examining it. But yeah, so if that makes sense, that's why for me, hearing people's voices and attaching that face or that voice to how they write or how they are or whatever, that really makes a lot of sense to me. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Scratch Chef, definitely. I think, and I remember one time you had commented about the way I write, and for the people who I, write more personal stuff to, I think I write the way I talk. Is that, Patch? Like, I don't know. Do you agree? Like, does it make sense? I know for Brazen and White, hearing my voice is newer. Well, no, no, I should no, I'm wrong because you've heard me on Patch's stream. You heard me on Mr. Patch streaming. Um, books in is there and the character development. Yeah, I know for some people it does, but I think for me, because of the way I learn, um, having that visual and sound helps because, like I said, if I read something, and again, I'm probably it's learning disabilities that were never talked about when I was younger, not talked about, but explored when I was younger. you know, I can memorize everything, but it doesn't mean that I know how to apply it. Um, Math, science, English, I can write all this stuff down, but what I've gotten comments from teachers is they can tell what they know of me when I talk in class, when we have discussions. It's not the same as my writing. So I've had a teacher before when I first started college who actually asked me if I have a learning disability because she felt like what I was writing on paper is not the same as the person she knows me to be. And it never fully clicked on me because, again, this is back in the 80s and 90s, right? There wasn't that kind of intuitiveness with some teachers or that allowance to help students in certain ways. So it wasn't until I first went to college and I had a teacher actually say that to me. But when I look back at what other teachers had said to me in middle school and high school, it made sense. Like, oh my gosh, I think I have a learning disability that I can memorize all of it, but I cannot apply those things, which I know Scratchcraft knows. Seeing the numbers, seeing the math and the measurements, yes, I get it. However, it doesn't work in my head. So that's why I'm trying to learn to be a little more, free and open on how I do my artistic stuff. Instead of being so formal and I have to do it this way and I have to do it that way, because it's helped me. It helped me to kind of be a little more open and free about it. Yeah, yeah. So definitely, yeah. Scratch it was a thing where when we had talked and you heard my voice and you see how I write, um, I think it is. I think the way I write and the way I talk is pretty much the same. But I had allowed myself to become that person. Of course, however, when I do write an academic paper, because I know some of you know I finished college a couple of years ago, I went back to school after 17 years, after my son, after some life events and whatever. I felt like I was at a good place to go back to college. So I went back to college and I finished my degree a couple of years ago. And I can write an academic paper really, really well, apparently. And I write in chat, obviously, in a very different way. I write to people in a very different way, but I can write academically a different way. And it took 17 years for me to figure that out about myself. How do I learn? How do I express my personal talking self written down? And how do I write a legitimate academic paper. So those are all, different things, and I've learned, and it took me a very long time that almost in a way almost regret having gone to college when I first got out of high school, because if I had, if I was at a place where I learned, if I understood how I learned, maybe that would be a totally different thing. Um, they said they had to learn obviously. Oh wow, yeah. See, it's one of those things, and again, it's like it has nothing necessarily to do with my parents like not caring for me, because again, my parents, they're immigrants, they didn't grow up in this country, so their school system is different, and all that sort of stuff. And on top of course, coming to another country and trying to grasp the idea that you have to survive here or you go back to your country, sort of thing, right? All the different reasons people immigrate and try to become, successful. We'll say successful. Um, Successful, that it's one of those things where even if they knew that maybe, oh, maybe our daughter has some learning disability, it's not even in their vocabulary. It's not in their vocabulary for it. Um, so, definitely one of those things I had to learn about myself. But I'm glad, and almost, yeah, I kind of wish maybe if I didn't start college right away, that, and I started college a little bit later and understood how my learning, it would have happened better. However, we don't regret those things, because me going to college when I went to college, and through the whole events, meeting my husband, having my child, you don't regret those things. You don't change anything in the past that can change the amazing things that you have in the future. If that makes sense to people too. That's kind of the way I think, and it's a mentality that we have in our household. That yes, it would be nice, oh, if we did this, oh, if we did that back then, and whatever. However, every decision you change in the past affects amazing things that you have right now, things that you love and care about right now. So, and I remember in Sketchcraft Stream we actually talked about a movie that reminds me of this thought. Like if you ever watch the movie About Time, it is kind of that fact where there's a character who has the ability to go and relive stuff, and there are bad things that can happen when you try to relive things or change the past, but in the most beautiful kind of story way. It's not action, it's just this drama love story ish kind of thing, but not overly, romanticized kind of love kind of stuff. But it's that kind of mentality that, okay, I didn't do well in, I mean, I did okay in school. I worked very, very hard in high school and middle school to get mediocre grades. um, but now, when I went back to college, it was a completely different experience. Yeah, I mean, in college, I think I had a three, I think I graduated with a 3.5 when I went back to college. And I worked full time. And I went to college, not every semester full time. Um, but yeah, and yeah, definitely. And yeah, see, butterfly effect, that idea of butterfly effect. Yeah, it is. And it is, Sketchcraft, definitely. You change one little thing in the past, and poof, Shadow Spartan's not there. It's no, that's not going to happen. So we don't regret it, but we learn from it, and then we work off of it to do something different. So like all back to what we're talking about now. So like, talking out and doing crafts is it's a different experience for me. But I'm glad that you guys are telling me that what I'm saying is me. It makes sense, right? It is the me, that's still the same me. And that a lot of times is always the best thing, to try to be yourself as much as possible. So, yeah. Wow, we learned so much about everybody today. Isn't this amazing?